So one of the things we're showing here at the show, which is not a new feature, but is something that's been around for a while, is the metagraphics workflow with Avid Media Composer and News Cutter. And this also works with Avid Interplay PAM. And so the metagraphics is a workflow where we're using our graphics plugin, which is formerly known as Viz One, to add graphics to a timeline in the NLE. So I can sit inside a media composer, I can browse for my graphics, I can add them to my timeline. And when I export this material back, so when I'm done with the story, we will be exporting clean video out of the NLE, and we are going to store the timing of what graphics you're using when and what data was populated. And so the result of this is I get an asset that has clean video. I have what we call an overlay timeline on that asset in Viz One, and that means that I can continue to change that graphics as it's going to air. And so just to give you a little brief glimpse of what this looks like, so here I'm inside a media composer. We have the graphics plugin that shows up in the effects, and I can just drag that down to my timeline. And let me just chop that up a little bit. So we already have a full screen opener that I added to the beginning of this thing. Let me just, and so what I can do is I can open up the effect editor. So what I essentially did was I added effect, it's on its own little track. I'm then gonna jump into the editor. And so here we're showing a tech preview of Pilot X. Now the graphics plugin can use different NLE selectors. So in this case we're using Pilot X, which is the tech preview. And so I can browse for templates. I already have a lower third here that I think looks pretty good. I'm just going to write metagraphics is a great way of working. And I can press save. And I can preview that. Now the trick here is some scenes are metagraphics aware. And so if I want to burn this in when I'm exporting from Avid, I'll just leave this unchecked. But in this case, I want to, of course, save that as metagraphics. I'm just going to check the metagraphics box. And the other effect I have over here, which is a full screen opener, is also has this metagraphics effect. And so what I then do is I take my sequence, and I'm dragging that onto a tool called Avid Assistant, and I'm going to create a new asset. And so, and this is basically fetching some metadata from the project. You can also fetch metadata from Interplay. Just going to create a new asset. And what we're doing here is we're uploading any media that is not already in Viz One. We're then taking the sequence and basically doing the render on the Viz One side. Obviously the graphics are not being rendered. We're instead just creating this overlay timeline. So I can now go over and look at what that looks in Viz One. And so here I'm inside the studio. I have that asset, and the keyframes, as you can see, are completely clean. And if I play the player, you can see there's no graphics here. But when I press the metagraphics button, which is a new feature in Studio, it's basically loading this overlay timeline that I talked about, and it's generating the preview of what that full screen opener looks like. And over here I have my lower third that I added. And since it's metagraphics, I can move the graphics, I can change the text, and so I have a lot of freedom. I can also do these changes in other tools. So I can sit inside of Pilot, inside of a newsroom client, and do those changes. This also allows us to be more intelligent at the time of airing these graphics. Since we can do things like transition logic, we can use the concepts and variants, so I can change the look and feel of a graphics depending on what channel it's going to air. And so yeah, that's essentially the metagraphics workflow with Avid Media Composer, Avid News Cutter, and Avid Interplay PAM.